Alright, so here we are in Hungary, and looks like no rain to be seen. I don't remember if we saw a little bit of rain
I've
last
had a
week.
chat with the R&D team about the new parts, and we're happy that they've been integrated into the car okay. With any luck, you'll be able to feel the improvement, so go and give them a try.
I meant last season in Hungary, not last week in Silverstone. But a few new parts, and it looks like they're wanting us to run some mediums. But yeah, so we'll knock out practice, get to qualifying, and to the race. Alright, so here we are in the Hungary Ring 4 qualifying. We still haven't set our hard tire times. 118 to 121 between the softs and mediums. As Russell is sitting at a 120.4. We're coming around this last corner. Provisional P9 here for Q1. We hit the DRS. Coming across the line with a 118.6, so I'm feeling pretty confident after this first run. Currently sitting P3 after that first run here and looking to make up a little bit of time. And we don't quite make up time. We're about 0.02 of a second off, but we do make it into Q2. That's provisional P3 into Q2. Moving on to Q2. Haven't set a grid and we're 9 minutes left to go. Coming across the line, 118.09. So a little bit of improvement from Q1. The weather kind of helps us there as well. We're sitting provisional pole. I'm around the corner once again trying to find some timeouts as we're back to our original tire compound set up. As provisional P1 as we make it into qualifying 3. Qualifying 3, our first run. Currently sitting P7 as we haven't set a time yet. 8:30 to go here as we almost invalidated our time. We have the Red Bull behind us as we set P5 after that. 118.2 to beat, looking for improvement on our final run here in Q3. We're looking for it as best as we can. We can only improve by about 0.2 of a second.
Ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Perez, Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Alright, so we're going to be starting side by side in row 3 with Lando Norris from the Quadrant McLaren. And yeah, I wasn't comfortable with the soft tires in practice. And we didn't get a chance to set the hard tires because of our tire. We went with the harder tire compound for the main race, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with our P5 start. See if we can get up onto the podium, since we did get a provisional pole from Q2. So let's get right to the race.
It's race day in Budapest as we get ready for another round of Formula One action. We're not expecting too many retirements at this circuit. There are plenty of current and former drivers with flawless finish rates here. In particular, Ralf Schumacher, who made it across the line in all 10 of his Hungarian Grand Prix starts. 14 corners then for our drivers to navigate at the 2.7-mile Hungaro ring today. It's 6 lefts and 8 rights around a lap here, with average speeds in the region of 120 miles per hour. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. It's Sergio Perez on pole today, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Sainz, Johnson, Norris, Leclerc, Russell, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Magnussen, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Joe, Ocon, Sargent, Jackson, Mick Schumacher and Callie Mayer. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. And with me today, of course, is Natalie Pinkham. Let's talk about Johnson. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Alright, so another shout out to us as we head into this race weekend. And as I thought, we're going to be running into the hards And it doesn't look like there's going to be much tire life on those hards compared to the mediums because of the weather. But we'll see how far we can stretch out these tires and then get to the race.
So the formation lap is underway here in Hungary. The front runners will want to get themselves prepared for the race ahead, as they can expect to be attacked through the first two corners when the lights go out. And they'll need to survive those in order to kickstart what they hope is a promising race. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, so you see that we're one of the only people starting on mediums, and we're going to be going to hards as everybody else is going to be going soft to medium. I believe Max Verstappen was the only other person on a different compound. He's going from hards to medium, so he'll have an advantage for a faster pace. It just depends on when he goes in for his pit stop, how much of an advantage that will be. The rest of the cars lining up to the grid. R5 red lights are coming on, starting P5 next to Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz off to a good stop. Hamilton being slow, and that's a Red Bull. Sergio Perez, we have to dart to the right side behind Hamilton and Verstappen. 3 wide into turn 1. A lot of dust getting kicked up. I'll have to look into the settings to change that, but we're side by side. A little bit of contact on Hamilton. We did get a warning for that as we try to make our move on Max Verstappen here into this downhill section of Sector 2, I believe is where it starts, a little bit farther down here. And these fast tires, we managed to get ahead of Max Verstappen here on lap 1. Hamilton there, Sainz, Norris, Russell, Perez, all the way back to P7 after that front row start. He was very bad start for him as we're coming up to the chicane here in Sector 2 and take a little bit more curb than I would have wanted for this weekend to start out the race. Everybody's single file through that first chicane, that single chicane of the race as we're coming to these long left and right handers. You can see everybody coming out more than I did, but we're still trying to get tires into heat into the tires as we're coming around through Sector 3. And a little bit of a snap of oversteer here as our tires aren't quite molded into where we want them to be. So the Red Bull of Max Verstappen staying close to us in that gap between Sainz, Hamilton, 1.5 or 3/10 behind Hamilton, and Hamilton is 1.6 now, starting lap 2 behind Verstappen. So myself and Verstappen on the harder compounds are somehow going to be able to get ahead of this group. Now 4.5 seconds between Hamilton and Verstappen, but on lap 7 is finally when we're able to see some action trying to defend against Max Verstappen. He takes the inside. We put up no fight to it. He has a better pace and DRS at this point with us on those hard tires. But we're going to try to outlast him as 8 laps in of these mediums, and we're trying to stretch these out for a one-stop. He has DRS, you saw there, but we're trying to make a pass. But I know making a pass through these corners is a lot more dangerous than it needs to be as we're coming through Sector 2 now. This left-hander, we ended up lifting a lot less than I needed to, so we go over and come back on as quickly as possible without putting the throttle down. That way we didn't get a track limits penalty. But yeah, lap 10 now, still behind Verstappen within the second, and Verstappen comes in on those hards. So the tire life of those hards were as expected. As we saw at the beginning of the race for the tire strategy, they wanted us to do a short run on the hards and a long run on the mediums. But we're going to go ahead and take this advantage and run as best as we can on lap 11. Try to get a gap going between ourselves and Verstappen as we were within a second here. And lap 11 is when we're going to be coming in for our pit stop. Hamilton 7.3 seconds behind us as provisional leader. And Verstappen all the way back in P12. Ahead of Piastri behind Sargent. Logan Sargent running P11 at this time. And if you guys didn't notice, we have the Ferrari livery, the Vodafone Ferrari livery, since our Monza livery install was improperly installed. So we went ahead and found the Vodafone Ferrari that will be running for the rest of the season, as well as the Sauber livery pack to replace Alfa Romeo. So that one's reinstalled as well. So we're coming out behind Piastri about 1.4 seconds now as we get up to speed, and lap 12 is when we're finally able to catch up to him, get relatively close, but it's not going to be enough for us to actually try to fight for position. But Piastri is coming into the pits, as well as several other people. You see Sargent ahead of us in P5 in the Williams. He ended up staying out, so he's doing a late run, I believe, on a soft tire. So Max Verstappen is already up there in P1. 2.7 seconds separate Verstappen and Sargent. And we're back up into P3 with Russell and Hamilton. He's 4-5, but you see Russell goes into the pits there as Hamilton slots into P4, Sainz P5. And we're about halfway through this race with Logan Sargent coming in on lap 13 as we're running these hard tires. And it's starting to get overcast. You guys can tell the sky's not as blue as it was before we came into the pits. And we're kind of hoping that overcast will help the longevity of these hard tires, as we have 13 laps to go. So we have 7 seconds between ourselves and Max Verstappen to try to pick up that gap. But lap 19, you can see it's doubled. 14 seconds between myself and Verstappen to this point. Carlos Sainz in the DRS on lap 20 and able to catch up to try to fight for position as we're coming across the line. Go a little bit wide, and we have the slower tires, so Carlos Sainz is able to fight for the inside. And like I said earlier, we're not going to really fight for position here after this double left-hander, so we give way to Carlos Sainz up into P2, and it's up to us to spend the remainder of this race to defend against Russell and Hamilton, the two Mercedes. And the Mercedes team is not so high up on the R&D chart, but they are running pretty well, fighting Red Bull for the championship. And here is the final lap. We're still sitting P3. We end up going wide because of our tire life. And here is George Russell making a move on the inside. We brake late, try to side by side through these last few corners. We're 3 corners to go. We push Russell to the outside. You can see him in the mirror here, going back to the other perspective, and George Russell on the right, Lewis Hamilton on the left on the inside, making that position against his teammate for P4. We move around the last corner, and there's not going to be enough time for Hamilton to get up into P3, so that's going to be a podium for us.
Yes, mate, I cannot complain about that one. That was an excellent drive. Well done.
There'll be smiles at the factory after that one. A great race and a real team performance to take victory here in Hungary. So, Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team. Let's have a look then at the driver's standings. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. So then, Natalie Pinkham, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Often, my go-to would be a driver who's managed to pull off an especially impressive feat during the race. However, in this instance, I was more impressed by Max Verstappen's solid, clean driving throughout the event.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's Red Bull. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, so an okay race, and what a start there was Sergio Perez. He fell back and gave us that extra jump at the beginning of the race. And I knew as soon as Max started to catch up to me there at the beginning of the race, that fight with Carlos Sainz as well, that I did not have the pace compared to these guys. And that makes me believe that P5 qualifying was a pretty fair start for us. But yeah, you can see our best lap time is a 121, and we're up here towards the 119, so we should have been back here towards the top 15 to 10 or so for time frame. But overall, it was a good race. Still sitting there in P8 for 106 points. Mick Schumacher is sitting there at P13 for 22, as he didn't get into the top 10. He didn't have a good race today. He's had a few good races, and he's starting to do worse. We'll have to wait and see. Valtteri Bottas, DNF on the end of the lap, and I don't know what happened with Aiden Jackson and Esteban Ocon. But yeah, so an okay race here for the Hungaroring. And that's 15 more points. So we'll see you guys in the next episode.